When I was 16, I saw the movie Rounders for the first time, and I was like, I want to be that guy. Not Matt Damon. I wanted to be Edward Norton, the guy who could cheat at cards. So I found this book called Gambling Scams, and I memorized it. I learned every trick in this book. I was especially interested in a game called 3-Card Monte, which is a very old-timey scam where you show somebody 2 black tens and 1 red queen, and then you tell them they just have to follow the red queen, and then they can make some money. And we went to the only place I could think of to hustle this game. My friend and I went down to the Greyhound bus station. And if you wonder how many people at a Greyhound bus station in Reno, Nevada are interested in trying an old-timey 1920s gambling scam with 2 children, the answer is 0 people. Not a single person could care less about us. So we gave up and we went over to Carl's Jr. to drown our sorrows in a double bacon Western cheeseburger. So we're sitting at Carl's Jr. feeling sorry for ourselves when this guy comes by and he sees that we've got 3-Card Monte cards sitting on the table. And he's like, do you like cards? I like cards. And we're like, great, our first mark, follow the red queen. And then he does this super annoying thing. He follows the red queen. And it turns out the reason is because he was a professional poker hustler. He was Worm, basically. And so we were like, will you teach us crime lessons? And he said, sure. So then for the rest of the summer, we met him at Carl's Jr., and he taught us stuff. We paid him $20 an hour for crime tutoring. And he taught us a lot of stuff, overhand run-ups and the double duke and discard calls and pickup calls. And it was the best time of my life. After a while, though, he got kind of like bored talking about cards, and we kept saying, like, when are you going to put us in a game? When are you going to put us in a game? I think we're ready. And he was like, it's just so much work cheating at poker. What you really should do is you should get in a regular poker game, and then when somebody puts their money on the table, just grab it and then leave. And we were like, what? And he was like, yeah, just take the money and run away. And we were like, I'm sorry, sir. I thought you were a high-class con artist. Are you telling me you're just a fucking thief? It turns out hustling poker was really a side hustle for him. His main job was accounting, and his passion was embezzling. And we found that out because after a few more weeks, he went to jail forever for embezzling. And then I realized, I don't know, maybe cheating at cards is kind of lame, Maybe Edward Norton is not the hero of the movie Rounders. And so I decided to give it up, and to this day I've never cheated anybody at cards. But I decided I could follow in the footsteps of a different Edward Norton character. And so for the rest of high school, instead of being a lame-ass card cheat, I was the coolest thing you could imagine. A child who's trying to be a magician. So here's how I used pen spinning to meet my soulmate. So I learned this in speech and debate. I learned it because I thought it looked cool, and I never learned to skateboard. Senior year in high school, I'm touring a couple of colleges, and I go to this one school, and I'm sitting in on like the sample class, and I'm doing, I'm spinning. I don't even think about it. And I clock this gorgeous woman, and she is doing the exact same spin that I'm doing. So I stop, and I switch to an index spin. And then she stops, and she switches to the same spin. Without talking about it at all, we have started playing pen horse. So we're doing this dork off. She does this, and then I do this, and then she does this, and then I do this, and then she does this. And finally, I'm like, this is my last trick. This is all I've got. The forward to reverse, back and forth. And she just calmly sets her pen down on the table. I know exactly what's going to happen. As soon as class is over, she's going to get up, walk over, grab my pen, use it to write her phone number on my hand, and then walk away, and we're going to have this glorious romance. And instead what happens is the teacher finishes class, says, you can go. She gets up, leaves immediately without even talking to me. And I never saw her again. Maybe she was just testing out in the class and was like, I've been humiliated. I give up. You have won the school. Or maybe it's the sort of thing where if I asked the professor, he'd be like, oh, Jane, she died 40 years ago in that very seat. But some people say when the moon is just right, you can still hear her over there spinning her pen. But then a couple years later at that school, I met another woman and we had an actual connection. And that really doesn't have much to do with the pen spinning. That was a little bit of a lie at the top there. I guess that was clickbait. So I met a real life con man for the first time a little while ago, and my grandparents were carnies. I love the sting. Like, I'm here for con men. I'm all about it. But this was fun because he wasn't just like at a party or something. He was at work. He was conning somebody. Me. He was conning me. So it's kind of like long-time listener, first-time caller. So I'm new to LA. I get lost a little bit and I end up on this creepy road behind a closed Kmart that's been converted to a closed Britney Spears fan experience. And these 2 guys in a pickup truck drive up next to me and they're honking and they're going crazy. And my first thought is, probably a fan, because I'm a fucking idiot. So I roll down my window and they're like, bro, your wheel is wobbling like crazy. It's about to fall off. And if you're a car person, you already get it. You're like, nope, you would notice.
I didn't learn that about cars. I spent the time I was supposed to learn about cars learning pen spins and the name of all the ships in Star Wars. So at this point, I'm just thinking, hey, chivalry's not dead, and I'm falling for this scam hard. Like, I pull over, I get out of the car. At one point, I even give him the keys to my car so he can show me something. I'm letting him do whatever he wants. But then he makes a crucial mistake. He goes to his car, he says, hey, I need to weld something on. So he goes to his car, and he gets out a can of WD-40. I don't know what WD-40 stands for, but I think it's not welding, 40. And I know what welding is. It's fire on the end of a piece of a stick, and it touches metal. And I know that because they did it a lot in Star Wars. But now, I know that I'm in the middle of being crimed, but I have no idea what I'm supposed to do to get out of it. Like, do I jump in my car, drive away really fast, and then, like, hide in an asteroid field? But then he finishes up his work and goes in for the kill. He goes, hey man, the work was free, but I am going to need you to pay me back for the part I used that I just happened to have in the back of my truck, $250, cash only. I laughed in his face. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It was so funny. $250. When you pulled over this 2011 Subaru, did you think it was being driven by a sultan? I could go halvesies on a postage stamp, but I'd have to check with my wife first. Cash? If I had $250 in cash, I'd be swimming around in it like Scrooge McDuck. We live in the future, man. People are doing Venmo and Bitcoin scams now. I'm not going to get robbed by a Luddite. And apparently, my weird laughing was enough for him to believe genuinely he was not going to get any money out of me, that I had no money to steal. I get home and I'm like so relieved, but then I start to wonder, is this a known scam? Does everybody know about the wobbly wheel scam but me? So I Google it, and when I Google it, I find something crazy. This is the Google search results for wobbly wheel scam, and this is the guy. This is the guy. These are the guys. These are the guys that rob. That's the Scarface and his little like understudy in the truck. They are the wobbly wheel scam. I didn't just meet some criminal. I met the Michael Jordan of the wobbly wheel scam. So a couple of follow-up things from that. First, just looking at their photos, I wish I could tell you that they looked more trustworthy in person, but they did not. Those are pretty flattering mugshots. Second, a bunch of the stories on Google say that they were caught trying to scam vulnerable looking people. They're trying to scam people out of $1,000. So I thought it was hilarious that they wanted $250, but I was getting a 75% discount. And now I'm kind of hurt. Like, they pulled me over and they were like, this is going to be one of those Groupon scams. This idiot does not have a grand. Number 3, I don't really know how to make this one funny, but a bunch of you have pointed out that this scam is how the Zodiac Killer kidnapped one person.
Well, you can't be too careful.
Ugh. I mean, I will say that when this happened to me, we were like a couple blocks out of Beverly Hills. It's not the main place you expect to get serial killed, but also I'm way too trusting. And I guess the takeaway from all of this is don't ever let anybody help you with anything. I guess that sucks. The world's the worst. And then the last thing is a bunch of people have asked, how could anybody fall for a scam from guys who look like that? How could they have become the goats of the wobbly wheel scam when their appearances are working against them at all times? And I'll tell you this, near the end of our conversation, when I was telling them I don't have any cash, no one I know has any cash. Everybody uses Venmo now. He said, so wait, if I had a Venmo, you would do it? He seemed like he was thinking about it. I bet you the next time he pulled somebody over, when it came to the part where he asked for money, he probably whipped out his Venmo, a Square reader. I'm sure he had QR codes on the back of his truck that went to his Bitcoin wallet. He probably had a Patreon, so if you signed up, you could get bonus scams every month or get this month's scam 2 days early. And that's how you become the Michael Jordan of the wobbly wheel scam. You don't rest on your evil laurels. You show up every day ready to learn and ready to do what it takes to take your game to the next level. So I said, come on, man, any criminal worth their salt would have a Venmo that I could use. And he said,
it became personal with me.
We did it, everybody. We found the worst feature ever added to a cell phone. I've got a Pixel, and recently they added a new thing to the phone app called audio emojis. It's a little group of emojis that show up on the screen when you're on a phone call, and if you press one, it makes a corresponding sound effect for everybody on the call to hear. It's basically a soundboard. Related, have you ever been on kind of a long phone call and your face starts to sweat a little bit from holding the phone against it, and it causes your cheeks to activate one of the phone buttons? I didn't realize until I was on a business phone call that Google had introduced a series of sound effect buttons directly at cheek height.
Business, 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 business.
Not a huge deal. It was confusing for both of us. We didn't know where it came from. We were like, I guess the FBI really is enjoying listening in on this phone call. Minutes later, my face cheek decides to play the poop emoji. Business. Look, I'm fun. I enjoy merriment. I think a fart sound effect can be very funny. The fact that this one has that little tiny bit at the end is pretty good. But adding it to the one function of my phone that I only use for kind of serious things, 0 out of 10, no thank you, Google, please turn this off. I went on the worst date of my life last night, and probably the hardest part of it was that it wasn't even my date. Like, my wife and I were just having dinner, but we were sat so close to this other couple that was on a bad date that it subsumed our whole meal, and we just sat in silence listening to them have a terrible time. Shortly after I arrived, he goes to the bathroom, he comes back, he starts a conversation with her. You gotta understand, I was just in China, and in China, business and sex are basically the same thing. I've never been to China or done business, I think, but that's wrong? I think that's wrong. So he's going on and on, he's explaining Bitcoin, telling her about how pictures of ugly monkeys wearing hats is the future of money, and she is not particularly interested, but he starts drinking because he notices he's bombing on this date, and he's drinking, and at one point he's housed a whole bottle of wine and she has not touched hers, and he starts to feel judged. So he goes, you just gotta understand, I just got back from China, and in China, business and drinking are the same thing. And that's when I realized he just didn't speak Mandarin and didn't realize that it's a tonal language, so a lot of the words sound the same. So he was like, I don't understand. Did I say the word business or the word sex? They sound the same to me, And what a terrible time he must have had in China, like going into a meeting and asking to see their financial records, and they're like, why did he just say he's into pegging? I want to help her. I don't know what to do. I want to end this date for them. Do I have to get up and pretend to be a waiter and then come over and say hey, there's a phone call for you, sir? Run. At one point, he gets up because he thinks he's killing it, apparently. He gets up, he goes around the table, sits down next to her on her bench. And at that point, I was like, I can't just tell her to run. This restaurant is doomed. Love will never blossom here ever again. The only answer is a cleansing fire. I need to push over my candle, pull the fire alarm, and then we all go out together and never come back. But then he tries to put his arm around her, and without even looking up from her food, she leans down, ducks under it like she's in the Matrix, then stands up, grabs her purse, walks out of the restaurant. So she got a meal, my wife and I got a thing to laugh about the rest of the night, and he didn't get to do any business later. But it took every ounce of self-restraint I had not to lean over to him and say, buddy, in America, being a douche in public and going home by yourself are basically the same thing.